you both have very unique art styles. A lot of people know your art styles, but how did you really get into comics and drawing and all that stuff? Because it is beyond fascinating. I think that's what everybody wants to know.
Okay. I had a career and I was selling fan art of your basic Power Girl sketches and Wonder Woman and stuff like that on eBay for years. And then it went from a hobby to a side business to making serious money. And so Carrie basically looked at me and said, do it or don't at this point. And so I jumped onto, she created a website for me. I jumped onto social media and started selling fan art on social media. And I did that for really only a few months. And somebody asked me for a cover. And it was funny because the guy who asked me for a cover, he said, hey, do you do covers? And I'm like, I don't do sketch covers right now because I just wasn't working with sketch covers. And he's like, no, I mean a real cover. And so suddenly I started to draw a few covers here and there and get a couple covers from publishers. And right about then, I'd say maybe I 10th or 11th cover or something like that. I was getting different people coloring my work, and that's where her story takes over.
So yeah, so I decided to get a iPad just to ink his work and to to set it up in the aspect ratio because he was having a hard time, not knowing the comic world, not knowing, what size to do it in and what size to work in. So I bought the iPad and I started inking, and something came back with one of his colors and the eyes weren't right. So I was like, okay, well, let me play. And that was history. I taught myself Procreate, and within 2 weeks, I was on my first cover.
So to even talk about that, because this is so unique, because obviously you were doing some fan art and some other things, and I have some pictures of some of this stuff, and some of it's early, and hopefully I won't get demonetized on
No.
Facebook or kicked off because, well, your style might lend that to it. But this is something that's early. I think when your website was starting to come up,
Very early.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was early.
and I don't know what the white stuff is, but we're going to leave that to everybody's imagination. And then this is another one that I thoroughly like
Oh,
as
I remember
well.
that one.
Red Zone, yeah. Oh, that was fun.
And obviously, it's a droid thing, right?
Yes. I love Naughty Leia. I just love drawing Leia being not Leia, not Princess Leia, being something else.
Sure, what do you mean? That's totally her.
I
That's
know,
exactly
right?
what she behaves like when she's not on screen. I mean, clearly.
It's what everybody wants Leia to be, a little naughty, a little fun.
And then even going further, obviously this right here, which I just think is so perfect in so many ways of Red Sonja, and again, that's sort of what everybody wants with Red Sonja. And then this is
That was
another
so
one,
realistic for you.
Yeah, that was when I was still drawing a little realistically because I started drawing realistically. All my sketches would have looked similar to that. They were very realistic in style. But as my drawing sold faster, since it was a hobby, I had to draw faster, and my style came out of simplifying, accenting the things that people most liked about my drawings. So my style became simpler or quicker.
because
And that's
this is one of the things that I was obviously on somebody's show, and I said, "Hey, I'm interviewing Steph tomorrow." And one of the questions is that, like, what was the inspiration? Because to me, your style, and I dubbed it obviously in Trish and Mike's, interview. I said it's kind of new school pinup,
right.
and I love new school artwork. I love the idea of you have to know the rules to break the rules,
Right.
and then I love pinup, and I love when the two things are mashed up.
Right.
And like, there's certain things like I would love to tattoo on my body that you've done because
Right.
it's absolutely my style. And was that just sort of a happy accident, or was that intentional? Because to me, if you tell me it's an accident, I'm just gonna leave.
No, like one of my favorite artists, I'm not a comic person. Like I didn't grow up with comics. I grew up with Dungeons and Dragons. So I didn't discover comics per se until the 90s when I was older and I would go into this comic book shop and they had really cool art books. and really cool heavy metal graphic novels. And that was the stuff that attracted me, was the art in those heavy metal graphic novels, the art in those art books. That was why I was in a comic shop. So the thing is, all those art books and all that art that I looked at was very realistic. But then I started to see things like, one of the first artists I liked was like Bill McKay, where you take realism and you make it a little poppier. You don't stick with the straight on realism. You make it a little bit more fun. And since I loved his work, as I was drawing and getting into drawing and starting to draw, I went or leaned more towards that kind of a comic-y style. And it's funny because I think, like Phil Foglio from Dragon Magazine, my work isn't that far from his. And it's funny because he had a very cartoon and fun style. And I think it lends itself to that kind of tattoo style pinup. Like, a lot of people have gotten tattoos of my work. They've either commissioned for it or they've just liked a picture, and I said, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, I've always compared your new style to Betty Boop and Jessica Rabbit kind of combined. That ultra sexy, bubbly, bouncy girls.